meeting started. Would everybody please turn off your cell phones and other electronics that might make an unsightly noise during our meeting? Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay, so
I will do roll call.
yes, Dr. Saunders is going to be doing roll call in the absence of Ms. Williams.
Ms. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Vargas,
Here.
Ms. Fleming.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, since we approved the agenda, let's do the
Okay,
allegiance
perfect.
to the flag. Ms.
Oh.
Jones, if you could lead us, please.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Under new business, we have the acquisition of, the approval for the acquisition of a new phone system. Matt, the floor is yours.
Perfect.
Thank you all for coming out. The window is tight here. That's why we've accelerated this a bit. So what we want to talk about, we need a new phone system. So I just want to start out what and why. We need to upgrade the current phone system. We have an on-prem currently, which is a Mitel 5000 system. It's a proprietary system. It's older digital system, so it has proprietary phones, PBX, and infrastructure. It's out of date. It's coming end of life, so we need to get rid of it. This has been on the books for a while to take care of. The new system will be a VoIP system, and we'll run SIP lines. We'll get into that a little bit. Why we're doing this, the system is an older technology. The equipment is end of life. But also we run PRIs here instead of the SIP, which is the newer technology for individual phone lines. So we have the PRIs coming in from Comcast, and Comcast gave us an estimate of $40,000 to move it from here to the new building. So,
Ouch.
that was a big red flag. So we said, well, maybe we want to do this when we move the building instead of waiting for next year. The VoIP system is industry standard these days. It's much more flexible, a lot more features. SIP lines are much less expensive, and we can expand or take away what we need on the fly. If we probably won't have to, but if we needed to, if we needed to give everyone a phone line, if everything went bad again and if we decided we needed to give every single teacher a phone line, we could do that on the fly. So not for free, but it could be done and it could be taken care of, which you can't do that with a PRI anytime fast.
Right. So
anyway, PRIs are going offline anyway.
So I am assuming this also includes the phones that this is going to include the phones that the teachers currently have, or is that running under a different system? That's just a little bit of confusion. Is it just for central office?
Oh no,
or is this technology?
This is every single phone in the system.
Every single phone in the system. Okay.
And that's this last one. Okay. So because we're changing the system
PRI,
at the school board office because of the move, if we are currently grandfathered under these last two regulations, we don't fall into these fully right now. We are Kerry's Law, but not Ray Bond's Act. If you make a change at all anywhere in your phone system, you have to be covered. You have to conform. So we have to change the whole system.
Okay.
That kind of forces our hand on that one. So that was another reason there was an option to do sort of a rollout for one of the systems. It was more expensive, but it would have been easier to absorb. We were really looking into that, but it's just it didn't. The option just didn't fall into place correct. It just didn't work. So we backed out of that.
Okay.
So what we took in consideration was cloud-based or on-prem. Cloud-based, you all are familiar with. There's no on-site equipment, mobile flexibility, and phone set options, a lot more phone set options. They're much more flexible on using different vendors. The installation, of course, is a little easier because all we have to do is put in phones and do the configuration of the system. We don't have to put in any equipment, any PBX boxes. The cons on that is cost. That's the big one.
Right.
It's considerably more expensive, as you'll see. Control over the equipment and connection. Some people say that's a pro and con. We currently have a PBX on-prem. We maintain it. We have the talent in our department to maintain that system and control it. And with the cost savings, with a phone system, it really is a set and forget most of the time until next year when the new staff comes online. You have to change some names and extensions, but that's simple maintenance. You don't have to do heavy, constant maintaining this software. I'll get into, or the maintaining the equipment itself or anything like that. It's just maintaining your configuration, who's getting what calls and stuff like that. And we currently do that with our system. So the on-prem pros, cost, oversight of the equipment and connection. It's just again, we have the talent here to react to something immediately for the phones. If it breaks, if it physically breaks, we can fix it. We can, in an emergency situation, we could move this to a virtual machine if we had to, the appliance. 911 backup with cloud-based, you have to have a separate router and a whole separate system that you have to run in parallel with the system in order to have a 911 backup, a hardline backup.
Right.
So everything goes down, everything goes bad. You have 2 analog lines at each school
PTSD.
that will allow you to pick up and call 911. It's only 2, but it's something, right? But you have to have something. If everything else goes bad, you want something. We can connect right into these appliances.
Okay.
For the on-prem. Using the SIP lines, we only have to use as many lines as we need, and the rest of them can be trunked and extensions. So it'll be just like we have now. Myself, Dr. Saunders, admin have direct lines. Certain people have direct lines, and they'll continue to have those direct lines. Teachers do not have direct lines. They have extensions. This will stay the same even with the SIP lines, and they will they'll still have extensions, but they'll be able to use those extensions on a mobile app. So they'll be able to be off-site with their classroom phone, basically. And the admin with the regular phones with a dedicated phone line will have that app and have their office phone with them at all times. The cons, owning and operating equipment, and for the Mitel on-prem solution, they have proprietary equipment and proprietary phones. So I put that in there because the Mitel was one of the on-prem solutions. Okay. Any questions so far?
I do have one question, and it's in the scope of work. And my apologies, I mean, the installation of the phones in the classrooms was like third to last, and I totally missed that. But I didn't see in the scope of work any kind of training. I mean, you said you have the talent, but you're not just going to drop somebody and expect them to figure out. I saw no allowance here when it comes to training the personnel who's going to be maintaining this.
Training for the end user?
No, for the
us?
folks, yeah, for you guys.
Our training is we are going to be involved in the installation, and I insisted on that.
Okay,
That we are part of the installation. That's how we're going to train, because that's how myself and my team, that's how we learn best.
Right.
To get our hands in it and do it ourselves. And he said, we're going to, if that's the way you want to do it, we'd rather you do it like that, because we want you to know how this system works and how it, so we're actually going to do all the back-end configuration with those guys. So that is our training.
okay, because normally my follow-up question to that would be, training materials or basically, taking notes. I'm sorry, I'm going to take this off so you can hear me. I know you're having a hard time. It's just, once you get somebody new coming in, it's like if it's like, like when they sell you something, when you buy a computer, it's just like, how to get going on this, right? It's those types of initial training capabilities. Hopefully, you'll keep your team forever. I mean, that would be my hope.
Yeah.
But we know
That's
how
not gonna happen, right?
how unrealistic that is. So, my question to you is, what is going to happen? Yes, you already got it in. Everybody who is here now is going to know the ins and outs of the system. So what happens with somebody who comes on board 6 months down the road?
We will have documentation for all
Okay.
the equipment and all the processes and procedures. We keep that currently for our system now. And as techs roll over and come in, they'll be trained internally through us and through that documentation. I don't have anything, any agreement with the vendor for any extra training. I'm sure they would do that, but I did not.
Okay, that was just. I mean, I didn't see any
Right,
training.
right.
It's just like, okay, you have a brand new system. Okay, so but you essentially are doing OJT from the get go.
And
Yeah.
one perk on this, which is sort of a side note, Rami, our network engineer, is very familiar with this system, with OpenPBX, which is Sangoma.
Right.
He is very knowledgeable about the back end of how that operation works, how that system works. So that gives us a little advantage on that too.
Okay.
So coming into it also, having that knowledge. The choices that we had for the cloud, the choices and the cost. So the Ring Central, so this first year includes the cost of the system plus all the phones. So 520 phones. There's a breakout of that if you need it. I think one of the documentations has it. There's desk phones, there's executive phones, and then there's the receptionist phones with the sidecars. Now, you'll notice that Zoom is much less that first year. So Zoom was very competitive, and they're a very good product. They were going to give us the first year free. So that $68,000 is just phones. So we would have just absorbed that. But if you take that whole price after 5 years, it's considerable. But that was a very gracious offer of them. They were very aggressive. The WebEx calling, they, again, all three of these are very good products. Industry standards. These are the top three you're going to see out there. What is the other one? The 3/8 or 8? I forget. Anyway, very good products. But again, the cost in the end is when we came to the on-prem. Allen Co. is who we have now, who we use for the Mitel system. They introduced an on-prem system. I forget what they called it. That they were just going to replace what we have now, and they were the ones that were going to do the slow roll, so that they could do a hybrid system using what we have now, and then moving the central office into VoIP, and then slowly moving the other schools. But there was a lot of configuration to that. It made me very nervous on workability, and that my confidence level on that wasn't so great. So this is a full cost of replacing it with the Mitel. The IPC, they are the vendors for downstairs. They use Mitel Connect. That's the system they use. I engaged with them because of downstairs, hoping to see if we could partner with downstairs in some way, either financially or tech-wise or anything, but there was nothing. It's two different phone systems. There's nothing they would do or nothing they can do for it. So this is that whole cost of that. The Sangoma, that first year is all the phones, the 3 appliances, and 5 years of warranty and licensing. The reason the other ones are so expensive is they have full price licensing across the board for all years. The Sangoma does a licensing and then a renewal cost, which is 20% of the original cost.
Right.
That's why it's so much cheaper. But I asked them to just put in the whole package up front because they were so less expensive. And then all you pay for is the SIP cost after that. Every year. That's our SIP lines. So if we had to increase lines, that number might go up some. And if we could decrease them, it would go down. I don't see that happening, but overall, you can see the difference in the numbers there. So we chose Sangoma. Cost, flexibility, and control and manageability is really what was a no-brainer to us. This is the scope of work. Hopefully you went through it. I don't know if you want to go through every line.
No.
It gets kind of boring, but basically we're just going to, tomorrow, I'm going to meet with them on a phone call and to have a kickoff. And we got to get the SIP lines and the PRIs coordinated so that all that is in line for cutover. That's a big one. And configuring our infrastructure to handle the IP phones at all the stations. We're about 50% right now, and we have the rest of the POEs in stock right now to replace, to get them online, to get the phones online, and then next year's budget, we have a full replacement of all switches throughout the whole system to upgrade to PoE, so that we can put it on any port anywhere. What we have currently, we'll have to put it on specific switches in each closet, which is okay, but we were upgrading our infrastructure anyway, so we went PoE across the board. So we're doing that. That's in the budget for next year. So that'll be a summer project also, along with laterally putting this all in. So,
Okay.
but we're going to get started on this right now. So the first thing that happens is the appliances go in place. The configuration starts happening from the old system to the new system. We're going to put dual phones probably here and at the front desk. Start doing some testing. Make sure everything's up and online without any sort of, because we can put SIP lines in place that aren't the lines that we use. So we'll have phone numbers that were not new phone numbers. So we'll have those and we'll test those. That'll be our first step. Make sure everything's working. This is just off the top of my head, kind of just foreseeing how we're going to do it a little bit. But and then we're going to make sure that all the front desks and all the admin and all the necessary people immediate need are in place and working for cutover. And that should be after the end of the school year. So I'm trying to drop that right in that gap between the end of the school year and the beginning of summer school. So admins, counselors, front desks, all that will all be working, transportation, maintenance, all the people that need phones at all times. There will be very little cutover there. And then we will go around, the IT team will go around and just install all the phones at all the desks. And that'll take a little longer. That'll take a couple of weeks, I think, or probably a week. If we bum rush it all 7 of us in a building, we can flood a building and have it turned over. But during that time, there might not be a phone in the classrooms. So we will make sure if there's people in the classrooms, of course, we'll address them first. But this gets into a lot of detail of
Right.
specifically a lot of configuration stuff.
I have are we open to
No, it's
questions?
just like, yes, are you done?
What's that?
Are you
Yes,
finished?
I'm finished.
Okay, so, no, I mean, I wanted to make sure that you were finished because I was rude and interrupted you before, but I had a question when I saw this part of the, presentation. Go ahead, Mrs. Fleming.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you, I see a lot of red flags. It's rushed. You're having a kickoff tomorrow, but yet asking for board approval today. So that kind of says, you're asking, I'm not sure what we're being asked for this evening. If it is, do we approve of the selection? Do we approve of the money? What are we being asked for? So that's my first concern with this proposal. The second is the cost. I understand that the cost is low for the out years. However, the cost for the salaries involved to maintain the on-prem solutions is not included. So when you're looking at the cloud solutions, they are including the salaries of all the folks that are maintaining those systems. The other thing I have, we're a small community, and usually cloud solutions just really rock that and give us a lot of backup. We're not relying on one resources or 2 resources. If something goes wrong, if they're on vacation, we have a lot of backup with cloud solutions because we have a whole company behind us, especially with WebEx or some of those larger names. So that's the other thing. Then security. I didn't see anything around security So I had questions about that as well. And then also upgrades. So you talked about this summer doing cutover, and you know, there's definitely costs involved when you upgrade anything, whether it's software, whether it's the salaries involved, the time that it's involved, how long it's going to take. So their outages are going to be longer if you're relying on one resource to do those upgrades versus a cutover. And then also when you're talking about, okay, we're going to do this all over the summer. Okay, so what was the timeline for the other solutions? Okay, so if with the SAM,
It's the same. It would have been the same.
so all
It
of them
had
are
to-
the same.
Everything has to be done at a essentially between, like you mentioned, like the dead stop at the end of the year and the beginning of summer school.
So what are we being asked for, I guess, as the board? Are we asked
Money.
just approve that particular amount of money?
Yeah, so the action tonight is to, because this is a contract over $100,000,
Mhm.
it requires board approval in order to access those, you know, to make that purchase and to move forward. The timing piece of it, sorry, Biggs.
You knew exactly what you was going to say.
Yeah.
Andrew.
It's happened to me.
So let me say that again. So what the board is being asked tonight is to, for approval of the funding, because it's a contract over $100,000, to be able to move forward. The timing piece, I think as we continue to learn the process of moving into a new building, which was certainly new to me as I joined in July. Some of those pieces, whether they're supply chain issues, whether they are getting contracted kind of work together, we understand that there's a timeline issue. And so our request to come for a special meeting was to try to get this moving as quickly as possible. I think what Mr. McCormick is anticipating is if the board does approve this evening, then we would move forward with a call tomorrow to get moving with the process. If the board chooses not to approve that, then we wouldn't move forward with the call.
So what's the alternate plan if we don't approve?
So if the board does not approve, then we would have to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out what solution we have or we don't have. And there would be a delay.
Is there funding in place already to support this effort?
So we intend to use end-of-year funds to be able to address this. And then as Mr. McCormick said, funding in the out years is included in the budget.
So I would actually like to see what the funding is in its totality for the maintenance of the Sagnoma solution, not just what they quoted us, because it is, if we're maintaining it, like you said, we're doing the summer projects, it's gonna be all summer, you're gonna work on it, you're gonna maintain it. I'd actually like to see what the total cost of ownership is.
Right. Well, that would be included in any of the solutions. So any of the solutions, we approach it the same way. The configuration and the implementation is done by the company, but the database maintenance would be done by us because they wouldn't.
Not
know.
for a cloud solution, it
Right.
wouldn't.
Excuse me.
Not for a cloud solution, it wouldn't, they won't even let you touch the database. That's not true.
Well, they wouldn't know
No, no,
that
no, no. He's
Dr.
talking about a
Saunders is
solution
moving
that
to
we're going
room
with.
210.
No, he's saying a cloud solution. You'd have
No,
to
no.
maintain the
Like
database.
if, like people moves and extension moves, we would have to do that ourselves anyway. That's what I'm saying as
Okay,
far
like
as the database.
configuration.
Internally,
Yes.
when
Yes.
when I
And-
move to a different
And
desk.
the software and the database maintenance that you're talking about will be done by Sangoma. That's the 5-year agreement in that first year payment. That I did a 5-year for this because we're not going to change anything in 5
instead
years.
of, correct, so if I understand correctly, you're essentially doing the upfront cost rather than have, because you're saying all the upfront costs for what the other ones are changing, so it's a different way of presenting it, so that's where, so if I understood that correctly, you're front-loading everything. You're front-loading everything, and then on the upcoming years, all you're paying for are the zip lines, correct?
Correct.
So I think that's what he's doing there, which is different than with the other
Correct.
vendors. But at the end of the day, it's the amount still comes out a lot lower than anything
Right.
else.
That software, that 5-year
Right.
software maintenance is included in that first year,
In the
the
first year.
Sangoma
Right.
quote that I put up there. And yeah, like the summer project, again, that would be the same regardless. We would be I mean, we could hire a third party to put phones out, but we just thought we could do it as a summer
Right,
project.
and that's,
but-
that's one thing that that Stacy mentioned, that there was a concern about total cost of ownership. From where I'm looking at, you already have some costs in the way of, you already have your team. And your team is currently, performing maintenance and backups and everything on the current PBX. So that would be the same, the same way of operating going forward. So, that's,
For on-prem,
Right,
but not for
for-
cloud.
right.
Right.
And
But not
that's,
for cloud.
I took that in
And that's-
consideration, that was sort of
Right.
a lateral move, yes.
right, exactly. So.
And I mean, the cost difference was really, for us, again, a phone system, at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of changes, a lot of people moving, we do a lot of that. But then after that, there's very little that we need to do we don't have to go to it and touch it every day.
Right.
If somebody needs a change, we make a change. And also, this new technology, the newer phone systems are leaps and bounds more capable than what we have right now, and way more usability. We could even offload some of the responsibilities to front desk people. It's a matter of dragging and dropping an icon to a name to assign a phone. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do that, but it's.
Please don't.
I know, but I'm just, as far as
It
the
can be done.
workload on us, it's gonna. You don't even want to see what we have to go through now.
And I've understood. So in a way, the technology will allow you to basically offload some of the stuff that you have to do manually today, right?
Yes.
So that's one understanding. So your level of effort on the back end is going to be, it's going to be absolutely lower, which is great because it frees up your tech people to do other stuff.
And
So I just see it
answers
as a
your
win-win.
earlier question.
Right,
The
exactly.
training's going to be much easier.
Right. So,
If someone has technical skills, they're going to be able to work this phone system.
another question,
And to answer your question about tomorrow's, I had set up in my schedule to call that guy first thing in the morning to say, let's get started. This was to approve the budget and also approve our recommendation. And I would like to go forward. That's my request. And if we do, that's what I was saying. We are going to start tomorrow, if anything is approved.
Okay. Like I said, I'm just asking because I think these are red flags to me when we have technology projects over $100,000. These are expensive.
Sure.
And I honestly, I am going to say partial to a cloud, especially with a smaller jurisdiction like ours. I think it provides more features, and that's the other thing is that thinking about future feature functionality. What are these other companies providing that an on-prem service is not going to be able to provide? So as the software is upgraded, they will do the upgrades on the software for us. It's not something that we have to do. They will do it. We will get more features in a timely manner. We'll also, our stuff is going to be more secure because they're going to provide those security patches in a timely manner. We're not going to be behind. There's just a lot more when we're grouped with a lot of other folks, and we get basically, the big business features and discounts and security with maybe a little bit more, but it's usually in the end, to me, worth it. The other thing with the other quotes, and I haven't been able to read through what features each of them were offering because each of them is unique. Some of them had different types of conference calling systems and things like that, which looked kind of neat too. But what kind of video conferencing options do we have versus the cloud versus the on-prem? Do we have any of those options or features offered? Was that in part of the consideration?
It was, especially with Zoom. We are going to stay with Zoom for our video conferencing. People are comfortable with it. It is the user's choice. That's the feedback that we're getting. So my end goal is, what do you need, and I want to make it as easy as possible
What
for
do we
you.
pay for that then in addition to this? Would it have been, if we coupled them together,
No,
would it have been a savings?
it would have still been, and I will say that cost that he quoted me included our video conferencing.
It did.
Yeah, so that.
So what do we pay for video conferencing now?
We'd have to get you that.
Because that would,
I think
So
it's
there's-
7,000.
There are various things that we use for video conferencing for both
Yeah.
instructional, right? So there's some instructional technology part of that where we're using it for teaching, and then there's some operational or administrative costs for video conferencing. So we also use Teams. We use a variety of products for that video conferencing depending on the particular need. We have some different levels of services with different products to be able to make sure that we can provide that teacher-student instruction and the securities that provides as well. So there are some educational, instructional kinds of things versus, I think, what we would be talking about for, in a phone kind of piece.
One of the things that when we talked to the city, when we had our meeting together, one of the things we talked about is the power of combining efforts. Is there any opportunity there to combine efforts with the city in this endeavor to save money?
That's why I went with the CPI or the Mitel system that they're using downstairs. That's the company they're using downstairs. And there was no. And the bottom line was there was no way to combine the two systems, or the cost was different because we write another contract. So it just came down to really there was no benefit to combine, or not combine, but use the same system, except for we might have knowledge of each other's system and we might be able to back up support of some sort, which is never a bad thing, but it didn't weigh heavy enough to
Did you have any questions? Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, I had an add-on to one of Stacy's questions. I know you mentioned that the maintenance was included, but I think Stacy had also asked about like upgrades and updates. Was that included as well? With
yes,
the
that's a
software?
software maintenance
Okay.
licensing upgrade for 5 years. That's what's uploaded, or in the initial 5-year first year
But they don't do it.
price. Huh?
They just give you the software to do it. They don't actually come out and do the upgrade, right?
I'm not certain of that, honestly. Either way, that's,
We would do it.
we could do it, or if it's, or they would do it. I'm not sure if that's included in that. It's probably us that we would update it.
And then you had also mentioned, I guess, as the years go on, if we needed extra SIP lines, that the price would go up. Did you include just the plain amount that we need, like the certain amount, or did you kind of pad, to add a couple more?
I
that we don't
currently,
need?
I added a few, because we have some requests to have a few more lines. I've added more phone sets because we have some requests for more phone sets in the buildings. As you know, creating some unique offices that don't have phone lines. And our current system, again, as I said in the beginning, proprietary infrastructure, these we can just drop right on the network, anywhere on the network, and configure that. So as far as SIP lines, we can add more if we need them. I estimated, we went with what we have right now in PRIs and added a few.
Okay.
They come in bundles, discounted bundles, so we got 50.
But
and
but
we have-
regardless of what it is, I'm looking at the prices. I mean, for all the zip lines, all the zip line costs across the 5 years, you know, it's $4,500. So we're not talking, I mean, this is for all of it. So
Right.
even if you had to add, you know, it's just like, I don't see,
And
I don't see a huge
with the
leap in the
cloud-based-
cost, right?
one of the difference, the cost difference is in a cloud base, you have to have a SIP line for every single user. So you have 520 lines. This one, we have 50 lines because it's trunked.
And you
So
can
it's
break- you
just
can
like
branch
it is
out,
now.
yeah.
So you call in the front desk and you go to an extension to a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And we can assign numbers to anybody we want as we go, like we do now. And that will also work on your phone. So they'll have their extension on their cell phone, on the app.
Okay.
Thank you.
And when they call out, they can call out their building number. So when they use that app and they call out, it'll come to the parent or whatever, their
Yeah,
building number and not their cell phone number.
right.
Are these
Ec-
secure connections? Like how is this happening? Is it secure, encrypted? Like what's the connections?
What's
between-
that?
The connections, are they secure between all of the hardware and,
Yes, they all come through it all come through our firewall.
but when it's coming in, is it like a secure, is that how it works with the,
A SIP line?
like how the connections, how it talks to
It's-
each other, is it secure?
I-
Do you know
I-
how when servers talk to each other,
It's encrypted.
it's
yeah.
encrypted?
Do you have, I mean, I think what she's trying to get to, do you have end-to-end encryption in these things? You know, how does the
Between
technology work?
our PBXs or
When I call you, is anybody able to intercept that call and actually listen?
oh no,
I think that's where you're at.
yes,
It's
it's
ent- it's
encrypted.
encry-
I'm
it's
sorry.
encrypted end
Yes,
to end.
it is encrypted.
End-to-end
That's through
encryption.
the SIP lines.
Right.
Those are yes, they are encrypted. Can't think
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Is that what you meant?
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking internal connections
Well, we
between
have
the
SSL
servers.
certificates that we use for servers.
Right.
And I was wondering if the PBXs in the hardware does the same thing,
It's
when
gotta be
things
a
are
sec-
talking to each other, if you're encrypting that communication.
Yes, they're gonna be on their own VLAN, and on campus, the connections between the two schools will have their dedicated fiber connection for the emergency box and the box.
You gotta have that,
Yes.
right? I mean, just like, that's gonna be your analogy to the.
For all
plain
the
old-
ATA
yeah, to the post line, you know, that you have right now, that you said you
Right.
have two.
So
right?
we'll be able to get rid of our fax lines, the elevator. We have a couple other lines, but we're keeping two of them as our emergency backup. But we'll be able to get rid of a couple of POTS lines at each building. Currently, we have about an average of about 4 at each building.
What do we currently pay?
Excuse me?
What do we currently pay? What are we paying monthly now, right now?
For maintenance, right now we pay $1,200 a month for our system, but it's been paid for a while. It's old. And the phones, we buy, as far as replacement phones, we buy, I just buy them used, refurbished. can't find them new anymore.
Okay.
And they're as expensive as any VoIP phone you can find. Because, of course, supply and demand, there's, Poly and Yealink and Cisco have all those different phones you can use with the system. And Sangoma has their own phone too. It's basically a Yealink, a relabeled Yealink, sort of. But the benefit of that is they're pre-programmed with their firmware, so provisioning them is extremely simple. So I can just scan it in, scan your name, and hand you a box. And you can go walk into the network and plug it in. I mean,
Okay.
we're not going to do that. I mean, we do have, we have certain ways. The phones never move, right? It's just, but we have the ability for them to move now. We will.
Did Sangoma propose their cloud-based solution as well, or just their on-prem?
They did. Switchvox has a cloud base, but it's again 300 upward. I didn't consider it as a competitor. I wasn't as familiar with it as the other ones either. They were lower in the quadrant. They weren't even in the upper quadrant, so I didn't. There were others that were out there that we explored at first but dropped just because there's certain things you just have to kind of take off the table.
All right.
We did a lot of research, and we want to save as much money for the division as possible. We don't want to go with the cheapest. We did go with the least expensive, but it made sense. We didn't go to the least expensive because it was the least expensive. It fits our needs. It's a lateral move. It fits everything we need to do and the way we need to do it. So, and it saves us, a lot of money.
Can you explain the 911? That seemed to be a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a big thing. Can you just explain that, the depth of that, and just explain what you meant by that, just so I'm
So
clear?
there's three aspects of that. There's the two policies in place: the federal, the Carey's Law and Bombs Act. So Carey's Law says when I pick up a phone and dial 911, it's got to dial 911. I don't have to dial anything else. It's got to dial 911. Ray Baum's says when I dial that 911, it has to tell them exactly where I am in the building. So those phones will be programmed to the rooms to say it's on floor 3, room C102 or C302.
And the cloud-based solutions did not do that.
They did.
Oh, they did.
They did.
Okay.
They all. Any phone system now has to.
Okay.
They all do it.
Okay.
Now the E911 or the 911 backup
That's what I was
is
talking.
yes.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
that's an analog. So everything goes down. You lose the internet. So a couple Fridays ago, Verizon decided to make some changes and took us offline. Okay. So with that, phones would have been down. And with the phone system, we have redundant internet connections. Anyway, we would have still had phones on that situation. But if everything went completely bad, like things got really bad and nothing worked, right? You still have a regular POTS phone, 2 of them, 2 lines on, and you can configure them to certain phones only so that like the front desk and the principal's office. So you just want those. If it got that bad, you're kind of thinking that anyway. So, so that not a bunch of people are trying to call out and taking those 2 phone lines, because once those 2 phone lines are taken, it works just like the trunk does. So once they're taken, they're gone. it will roll over to those two POTS lines. So you'll have two POTS lines dedicated for that backup if everything else goes bad. In order to do that with a cloud base, you have to have another system. And they make systems. I didn't include that cost. There's several Red Cloud and something. I looked them up. I talked to Prince William County about it. The guys over there, they're using Red Cloud, and it's just a whole different system, and it ties into your system. So when your system goes down, it kicks on. It's a router and a transceiver, I guess, that goes from POTS line to digital and goes to your system. So, but this can connect directly into our PBX system like we have now. It's a built-in thing into ours. That's included, so that's an extra cost on that. And an on-prem solution. That has to be something that's
Right.
maintained
Well, yeah, of
on
course, yes.
in-house.
Okay, any more questions?
How many people do we have maintaining our phone system right now that will transition to maintaining our phone system? 5?
Currently,
You went like this.
His entire team, 7 people.
7.
So 7
So,
people.
yeah. So, myself and Andre have been trained at the highest level.
But that's
with-
not all that you do.
No.
Okay.
The Mitel. So if things get like very complicated,
Yeah.
like if someone needs an extension change or a room change or something like that,
Yeah.
the techs at the
School.
at the schools, they make those changes. And every year, the admin gives them a list. Here's the rooms. Here's the people that are going to be in the rooms. So you got to put their names in and send out the instructions of a voicemail.
This is the entire IT team maintaining the computers and things like that. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they take care of the individual stuff that needs to be done. If it gets complicated, Andre or myself usually step in and work, and then if it gets to the next level, then we would call the company, and it would be the same with Sangoma.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for entertaining all of my questions.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate it.
So,
I hope I answered them.
yep. So at this point, I'm going to ask the present members to vote on this. Dr. Saunders, since this involves money, it's going to have to be a one-by-one vote. If you could do the honors, please.
Yes, I can do that. I think what the board needs to do is make a motion first.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm gonna let you make a motion, or someone make a motion, and then second, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
Right, I missed that
I'll make
part.
a motion to approve.
I second.
I would like to amend that so we'll be clear as to what we're doing. Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve the expenditure of $180,930 and 88 cents for Sangoma to be put under contract to upgrade or to change our phone system, and permission to do that as soon as possible, namely tomorrow. Second? Do I have a second on that?
I second.
Okay. Would you
Okay.
please call?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll start with Mr. Vargas,
Yes.
Ms. Fleming,
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
That's everyone.
Okay. Having said that, motion passes. Let's get to work.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you to- yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna
Thank you
say,
very much.
thank you to
yeah,
Matt.
For Matt to do this little after-hours excursion. Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Shante, for coming in today. And hopefully, we'll get working on that. And having no further business, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you.